Proudly broadcasting from the Richard Philip Cavallaro studio.
WRHU.
Hempstead.
You've discovered.
A cornerstone of the Lawrence Herbert School of Communication.
WRHU.
Now, Long Island's largest radio news team brings you the Associated Press award-winning program, Newsline.
Coming up on Newsline, Monday, October 14th, 2024.
A suspect in a potential third assassination plot against former President Trump is arrested.
FEMA halts some aid over threats to its workers.
Both major presidential candidates are campaigning in Pennsylvania.
And a Middle East vigil is held here on Hofstra's campus.
In out-of-this-world tech news, a NASA spacecraft is on its way to Jupiter, SpaceX has their most successful launch since June, and China displayed a sample from the far side of the moon. I'm Alexa D'Amato, and I'll have all that and more later in the broadcast.
In entertainment tonight, Sean Diddy Combs, the Basketball Hall of Fame, and The Apprentice. I'm Ricky Hubert, and I'll have all that and more for you later in the broadcast.
The Islanders are still searching for their first win after a rough start. The Giants continues, and the Jets kick off the Jeff Ulbrich era on a high note. The Mets are down in the NLCS, and the Yankees stunk their ALCS tonight, and the Hofstra soccer keeps up its winning momentum. I'm Cameron Campbell, and I have all that sports news coming up later in the broadcast.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Cameron Bowden.
And I'm Chris Casella. We begin tonight's broadcast in California. Former President Donald Trump appeared at a rally event in Coachella Valley yesterday, where deputies stopped and arrested a man who was armed. Vem Miller allegedly had with him a fake press and VIP pass, as well as a loaded shotgun and handgun. Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco said that the pulling over of the suspect might have stopped another attempt on Trump's life.
What we do know is he showed up with multiple passports with different names, an unregistered vehicle with fake license plate, and loaded firearms. If you're asking me right now, I probably did have deputies that prevented the third assassination attempt.
Miller is a member of a far-right anti-government organization, often called the Sovereign Citizens Movement. According to his social media, Miller appears to be a pro-Trump Republican. Former President Trump has yet to release a statement on the matter.
After streams of mis- and disinformation coming from the response to Hurricane Helene, local sheriffs in North Carolina have said that the Federal Emergency Management Agency will pause some operations over threats made against its workers. Ashe County Sheriff Phil Howell stated that there has been threats against FEMA employees in the mountain region, and as a result, quote, and out of abundance of caution, they have paused their process as they are assessing the threats. President Joe Biden is visiting regions hit by Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton and has called on those spreading misinformation to stop.
Mr. Trump and all those other people know it's a lie to suggest that's all they're going to get. That's bizarre. It's bizarre. They got to stop this. They're being so damn un-American with the way they're talking about this stuff.
FEMA workers had to halt work on Saturday in Rutherford County because of armed militias who were shouting and threatening employees.
Heading up to the Keystone State, both former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are in Pennsylvania, garnering support for their candidacies in the upcoming election. Harris will be at a rally in Erie, which has historically been a county that predicts the winner of Pennsylvania's electoral votes. Trump will be outside of Philadelphia for a town hall, which he is hosting. According to new NBC polls, Harris and Trump are deadlocked at 48%, a sign for an extremely narrow upcoming election. According to campaign spokespeople, Harris's approach on this northern battleground visit will be to highlight the future. Trump's will focus on inflation and jobs in a women-only Fox Town Hall, which will be broadcast this evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Today, I sat down with Professor David Green, an instructor of political science with a specification in international and domestic politics, to talk about some developments with the presidential election. He started on addressing the importance of this November election.
America in this decade reminds me a lot of the history that I know of Germany in the 1930s. We're on the precipice of possibly moving in a very, very dark, very, very dangerous direction. And I hope that doesn't happen, but I hope voters will take that prospect very seriously.
With the election just 3 weeks away, the state of politics is an extremely fragile and ever-changing one. Recently, former president and Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump has ramped up some of his rhetoric surrounding undocumented immigration into the United States. Some of the things he's recently said include that immigrants are muddying the bloodline of the U.S. and that that murderers are in immigrants' genes. Could you speak to the impacts that you believe Trump's statements on undocumented immigrants will play on this upcoming election?
I mean, I'll go even broader than that. I mean, I think the whole Trumpist phenomenon, Trump himself and kind of the movement that he leads, is devastating to the state of American democracy, and the damage that he's wrought in the last decade or so has been huge, and it will be vastly more so if he manages to become president in the coming election or whatever transpires after that legally, which is where I really kind of suspect the election is going to be determined. In particular, to your question, the kind of divisiveness and sheer lies regarding immigrants, I think, has divided the country deeply. We are, I think, very much on the edge of violence in many ways regarding these issues. And it's just introduced a real ugliness and a real profound dishonesty regarding almost everything concerning American politics. So I think it's been very, very damaging.
Vice President Kamala Harris, who's gone on a sort of media frenzy recently, addressing viewers of various podcasts and shows. However, she has seldom discussed political actions that she would take on some of the biggest and most hot-button foreign affairs issues, including the ever-broadening war in the Middle East. What kind of impacts do you believe that specific conflict that's now grown into Lebanon and is reaching into Iran as well, what do you believe those conflicts will have on voters this upcoming November?
Well, interesting that you asked that. Just last week I spoke on campus on the very question of, what will be the role of foreign affairs questions in the election. And I mentioned in my speech that commonly that the impact is pretty low. And I think in this case, that will be the case as well, even though we have at least two major conflicts going on that the United States is indirectly involved in pretty deeply, that being Ukraine and the Middle East. But actually, if you look at poll data where voters are asked, what are the issues that you care about and will be determinative of your vote in the election, it's very low on the list. I looked at some Gallup data from fairly recent polling, and foreign affairs was ranked number 14th on the list of voter interest. And so I don't think that it's going to determine a lot, broadly speaking. However, there are 5 or 6 or 7 swing states that will determine the outcome of this election, and they're all very, very narrow right now. And at least one of them has a very large Arab American and Muslim American population, which is Michigan. So there you could imagine, because the race might come down to a matter of thousands of votes, that Harris's failure to kind of differentiate herself from the Biden administration and the anger that's directed towards the Biden administration for its Middle East policy could have a negative outcome on her campaign.
Harris recently released a medical report that said she was in excellent condition to run the country if elected, and has called on former President Trump to do so as well. However, he is yet to release those documents saying that he is in perfectly fine health, to run the country, and that he doesn't necessarily need to release those because of how busy he is right now. Should this topic be more important on the minds of voters?
I think it's important for several reasons. One is, you kind of want to know what is the health condition of somebody who's going to lead the country over the next 4 years. Secondly, Trump is not a young guy. He's now the oldest person ever to run for president. And if you listen to his rhetoric, there's a lot of indication there that his cognitive skills have slipped quite a few notches, much like people were concerned about with Joe Biden. And then the third thing is, it just, once again, I'll go back to my first response to your questions. It goes back to a deterioration of American democracy and to a kind of profound dishonesty that surrounds the Trump campaign and the Trump administration when he was president in almost every respect. So he often says things like, I'm going to release my tax records, but never does, or I'm going to release my health files and never does. So I do think voters should care. A separate question is, do they care? And I think the answer probably is not.
Thank you again to Dr. Green for that interview.
Today at Hofstra University, the Students' Voices for Palestine chapter held a vigil commemorating the lives lost in Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine. At this point, the death toll in Gaza is over 42,000 killed, and the death toll in Lebanon totals 2,300. An unknown number of civilians have been killed in Yemen and Syria. WRHU's Dorcas Umaru spoke to some students who were there as a part of the vigil and as passers-by. Logan Finkelstein, a freshman mechanical engineering major, said that he was there to show other Jews who support Israel that it is safe to express themselves.
And while it's a tragedy that so many lives have been lost, I'm primarily here just to show the side of others and kind of to show that there are Jews here, there are Jews who support Israel, and, for anyone who might be walking by, and you have our opinions, you're not alone.
Dossie Gordon-Knight was another of those students who support Israel and said that the vigil brought negative emotions for them.
I think that for the people like me who are Jewish and Zionist, for me it's a little rough seeing people in this sense kind of like fighting against like the values that I hold really deeply to me.
In contrast, Caitlin Gladkowski, a sustainability studies major, shared their motivations behind speaking at the vigil.
Today we decided to hold the vigil for the lives lost in Palestine, Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, and we read the first 15 pages of I think it was 300 pages of confirmed, and this confirmed and identified people that have been killed, and the first 15 pages is just children under 1. It took the whole time, hour and a half, just to read the babies under 1 year old.
She explained that it isn't those in the present who are being killed, but effects like asbestos will cause devastation for communities even years after.
I didn't even really know enough about Israel or Palestine until I started taking a genocide course, and that was called Voice from the Past in high school. And other people had brought it up, but even within this class that was built for talking about genocide and acknowledging all the lost genocides of history, people were still uneasy to talk about Palestine. And then I finally really learned on October 8th, and since then I've just been seeing the videos.
As war rages on, the death toll is only expected to rise, and the recorded number of those killed is much smaller than what analysts expect to be a number over 100,000.
An Israeli airstrike hit an apartment building in Lebanon today, killing at least 21 people. The building was located in Aito, a village in northern Lebanon, which is far away from the areas of influence that Hezbollah has in the south and east. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the airbase that was struck by a Hezbollah drone yesterday, where he said, quote, "We will continue to strike Hezbollah without compassion in every part of Lebanon, including in Beirut." The Israeli military has not commented about who the target of the strike actually was.
The European Union has denounced violence targeting UN peacekeepers. Israel launched attacks which have injured 5 peacekeepers as they stay committed in their fight against Hezbollah. The EU also rejected claims made by Israel, alleging that the purpose of having the peacekeepers was to disrupt anti-Hezbollah military operations. EU Foreign Chief Josep Borrell said, quote, "Their work is very important. It's completely unacceptable attacking United Nations troops. 25 villages throughout South Lebanon have evacuation orders in place. Over 42,000 Palestinians have died as a result of Israeli attacks in Gaza."
Coming up after your Newsline specialty report with Alexa D'Amato, Hempstead plans on raising taxes to a new high. Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations happen across the city, and the number of fake ID cases falls. But first, your Newsline traffic and weather update with Jackson Warren. WRHU News Time is 5:43.
Newsline. Up to the minute local traffic.
On this sunny Columbus Day afternoon, the weather outside is very windy, making outside a chilly 66 degrees with a 4% chance of rain. Later on tonight, it's still going to be windy, but the temperatures will drop to a low of 42 degrees with wind gusts of 36 miles per hour. So bundle up for tonight. For tomorrow morning, the weather will bring in sunshine while maintaining a 58 degrees with wind gusts of 30 miles per hour. So make sure to pack a jacket or extra hoodie to stay warm. For the rest of the week, it's going to be very windy. It's going to be a very windy week, mixed of sunshines throughout, with highs that reaches up to 65 degrees and lows that drop down to 43 degrees. But if I was you, I would double check with your weather app or local news for updates. If you're hitting the road today, make sure to look out for these delays. There's a crash on New Jersey 15 northbound that is that's blocking up New Jersey 94 all the way to Meadows Road. We expect a 30-minute delay on I-97 On I-78 westbound, there is a fire blocking up 3 lanes due to a vehicle being on fire. Expect a 25-minute delay. I'm Jackson Warren, and stay tuned for my second traffic update later on this broadcast.
Newsline Technology.
NASA's Europa Clipper is officially on its way to Jupiter's moon, Europa, after launching at noon today. The mission aims to determine if the ocean hidden beneath Europa's icy crust could potentially host life. The spacecraft will reach Jupiter in 5.5 years, then enter orbit and conduct flybys of Europa. Scientists are confident a deep ocean exists beneath the moon's surface, and water could be a sign of possible life. While Europa Clipper won't look for life directly, it will search for key ingredients necessary for life, such as organic compounds. The spacecraft launched aboard a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket, embarking on a nearly 2 million-mile journey. The project cost approximately $5.2 billion. Meanwhile, a little closer to home, SpaceX successfully caught its returning booster at the launch pad using mechanical arms.
This is absolutely insane. On the first ever attempt, we have successfully caught the Super Heavy booster back at the launch tower. What an incredible view! Are you kidding me?
The booster returned 7 minutes after takeoff, and the 232-foot arms caught it in midair. An hour later, the spacecraft launched by the booster made a controlled landing in the Indian Ocean, hitting its target before sinking as planned. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson congratulated SpaceX CEO Elon Musk and his team for their success. Starship testing will continue as SpaceX prepares for missions to the moon in collaboration with NASA's Artemis program, an extension of the Apollo program, which sent the first Americans to the moon in 1969. This follows 4 previous failed Starship flights that ended in crashes. The most recent flight was in June, was the most successful, landing off target without exploding. Back on Earth, China displayed a rock sample from the far side of the moon at a space summit in Milan, Italy, during the International Astronautical Congress. Although Russia was absent, many countries attended to discuss space collaboration. NASA showcased pieces of the Bennu asteroid from 2023, while discussion centered on lunar exploration, including NASA's Artemis program. Starlink also raised concerns about potential space collisions and debris. With your tech report, I'm Alexa D'Amato.
WRHU News Time is 5:47. Thank you, Jackson Warren and Alexa D'Amato, for those reports. The Hempstead Town Board will hold hearings on Tuesday to discuss the tax cap and approving the 2025 budget. The proposed plan allows for a 5% increase in spending from the current $522 million budget. Town Supervisor Donald X. Clavin Jr., who has overseen the budget since 2021, continues to manage the town's finances. According to town spokesperson Brian Devine, Clavin has, quote, aggressively controlled costs that are within the town's discretion. Hempstead is expected to use $56 million from its reserves to balance the current budget. It remains unclear whether these reserves will be tapped for next year's budget.
Today marks Indigenous Peoples Day, and the Indigenous Peoples Day NYC Committee is hosting a free event on Randall's Island. The celebration features 24 hours of cultural performances, music, authentic food, spoken word, guest speakers, traditional drum circles, and an evening concert to close out the night. Committee member Chanae Bullock described the event as a beautiful celebration of global Indigenous heritage and resilience, adding that it highlights ongoing struggles shared by Indigenous communities worldwide. Additionally, New York City held its 80th annual Columbus Day Parade today. This parade celebrates Italian-American culture and the accomplishments of the Italian people. The parade included about 35,000 participants, more than 20 marching bands, 18 floats, and about 1 million spectators, as well as closed many Manhattan streets.
Fewer people were caught with fake IDs this summer in New York, according to the Department of Motor Vehicles. Over 300 people were cited during the DMV's enforcement at concert venues, marking a slight decline from last year and a 44% drop from 2022, when 500 people were charged. DMV Commissioner Mark J.F. Schroeder said he's pleased with the declining numbers, emphasizing that summer concerts should be enjoyed without risking health and safety. The DMV, in partnership with the State Liquor Authority and local law enforcement, aims to curb underage drinking.
Governor Kathy Hochul announced that nearly 1 million low-income New Yorkers have enrolled in the state's Medicare Savings Program, which helps save around $7,400 annually in health care costs. The program covers Medicare Part B premiums and provides extra help for prescription drugs. Individuals earning up to $2,355 per month or couples earning $3,189 may qualify. With Medicare open enrollment starting, Hochul urged seniors to check their eligibility and explore other cost-saving options. State officials call this expansion a vital step in reducing healthcare costs for those who might not qualify for Medicaid.
WRHU's Dorcas Umaru visited Streams of Joy New York Church, which hosted a prayer marathon over the weekend with church leaders and attendees to pray for the progress of New York City. Issues at hand include the current charges filed against the mayor and those in his cabinet, as well as various issues plaguing communities. Here she is with more.
Do you understand me? If you see that you have
Streams of Joy New York Church in Meadow Flushing, Queens hosted a prayer marathon on Friday night where people, young and old, came together to lift their voices in unity with church leaders who led prayer for the peace and progress of New York City. This event precedes an upcoming Christian concert for Worship United, a group of over 25 churches, at the end of October. Every Friday until then will be a day for prayer in preparation. Pastor Sam Nkama hosts the Relationship Essential podcast and was one of the organizers of the event. He shares what the prayer marathon is about.
We meet every Friday to pray and intercede for the city, praying for the city. The Bible says, if the people that are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, I will come in and heal our land. I think if we pay attention to what's going on in our community, we see a lot of mental health, a lot of perversion in our community, a lot of crime. And I think sometimes people just think it's statistics, but a lot of those physical things have a spiritual root.
He also shared the inspiration and vision behind this gathering.
I don't think there's a lot of events where churches just come together. So me and a few pastor friends of mine just say, hey, why don't we do something that brings believers, where it doesn't matter if you're a 7-day worshiper, if you worship on Monday, Tuesday, Sunday, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter, just come.
Another pastor from Dominion City Church, God's Gift at Chiwa, shared how the event fosters a sense of community and belonging.
I understand New York City has over 8 million people, and people can also be lonely, even regardless of that number. So this is an avenue where people can come, fellowship together, meet new people.
Dr. Charles Uti, a member at Streams of Joy New York Church, shares his experience from attending the event.
The prayer points were awesome. Praying against gun violence, praying against death, praying against unnecessary shooting that is ravaging the city of New York. But tonight, all those negativities have been dismantled, and we are confident that God will shower His peace upon this city.
And a member of Dominion City Church, Chanel Stevens, shared what stood out to her at the event.
The best part of Prayer Marathon is that it brings power.
The prayer marathon provides a space for people to pray together and grow spiritually. For Newsline, I am Dorcas Umaru reporting in Meadow Flushing, Queens, 88.7 FM, Radio Hofstra University.
Thank you again to WRHU's Dorcas Umaru for that report.
Coming up, your Newsline Entertainment Report with Ricky Huber and your Newsline Sports Break with Cameron Campbell. But first, your Newsline Traffic Update with Jackson Warren. WRHU News Time is 5:53.
Newsline. Up to the minute local traffic.
If you're traveling towards the airport today, look out for these delays. There is no destination delay as of right now. For departure and arrival, both airports are experiencing a 15-minute delay. If you're hitting the trains today, you're in luck. As of right now, each branch on the LIRR is running on time, so don't be late. For traffic, there is a roadblock on US 46 westbound due to a tree falling. Expect a 15-minute delay. On I-87 westbound, there's a crash that is happening on the ramp near exit 88A. Expect a 20-minute delay. That is all the traffic and weather updates for now. I'm Jackson Warren.
Newsline. Entertainment.
A new set of lawsuits have entered the arena for Sean Diddy Combs, this time accusing him of raping women, sexually assaulting men, and molesting a 16-year-old boy. At least 6 new anonymous lawsuits have been filed against Combs. The accusers joined an alleged over 100 victims who are taking legal action against Combs after his sex trafficking arrest last month. This past Friday, an appeals court judge denied Combs of immediate release from jail, while a 3-judge panel of the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals weighs his bail request. Former President Donald Trump is not a fan of the new film, The Apprentice, which documents his rise in New York real estate during the 1980s. Trump wrote on Truth Social this morning regarding the film, quote, "A fake and classless movie written about me called The Apprentice will hopefully bomb. It's a cheap, defamatory, and politically disgusting hatchet job put out right before the 2024 presidential election and will try to hurt the greatest political movement in the history of our country." The film opened in 1,700 theaters across the nation this past weekend and grossed $1.6 million, making it 10th in the nation. In light news to conclude, the Basketball Hall of Fame Superfans Gallery had some new inductees. New York Knicks fan Spike Lee was inducted, as was comedian Billy Crystal, a notorious Los Angeles Clippers fan. Lee said in regards to the honor, quote, "I didn't even know this thing existed, so I was in shock when I got the phone call." Lee said overall, quote, "It was a great experience seeing these guys. I get to see them in action sitting courtside." With your Newsline Entertainment Report, I'm Ricky Hubert, WRHU.
From the Philip Cavallero Sports Desk, this is your Newsline Sports Update.
The New York Islanders are still looking for their first win of the season. On Sunday night, they were shut out 3-0 by the Dallas Stars. Tonight, they face the winless Colorado Avalanche with puck drop at 9:08. You can catch all Islander games on 88.7 FM, WRHU, and all across Islander Radio Network. The New York Giants fell to the Cincinnati Bengals 17-7 and now set their sights on the Philadelphia Eagles this Sunday at 1 o'clock. Meanwhile, on Monday Night Football, the 2-3 New York Jets, led by new head coach Jeff Ulbrich, take on the 3-2 Buffalo Bills at 8:15. Last season, these teams split the series 1-1. We turn to baseball as the Mets kick off the NLCS in disappointing fashion, losing 9-0 to the LA Dodgers in Game 1. And Game 2 is currently underway as we speak, and the Mets lead 6-1. Over in the ALCS, the Yankees begin their quest for the World Series tonight against the Cleveland Guardians. Carlos Rodon will start for the Yankees, and Alex Cobb is taking the mound for the Guardians. Both pitchers are still searching for their first playoff win this season. Finally, we finish up in Hofstra sports. The women's soccer team defeated Hampton 2-0 yesterday with goals by Matilda Braithwaite and Gabrielle Marte, her first of the season. Tomorrow, Hofstra men's soccer travels to Raleigh to face the NC State Wolfpack at 6 p.m. With your Newsline Sports Update, I'm Cameron Campbell.
That will do it for tonight's edition of Newsline. Many thanks to the entire WRHU news team. Engineering our show this evening is the positively pleasant Parker Driscoll and the all-star Alex Hoy.
Thank you for tuning into Newsline, only here on your 4-time Marconi Award-winning radio station, 88.7 FM, Radio Hofstra University.
Access real-time, local, Long Island, and New York, and global news, along with content from WRHU Talent, Monday through Thursday, 5:30 to 6.
And tune back in from 7 to 9, Monday through Friday morning for our talk show, where we discuss Long Island life, national news, and international issues from the minds and mouths of Hofstra students on the morning wake-up call.
Lastly, check us out on social media at WRHU News for behind-the-scenes content.
For Newsline, I'm Cameron Bowden.
And I'm Chris Casella.
Thank you for listening.
And have a good night, Long Island.